Welcome back to Dinar Community Channel. What if you woke up tomorrow a millionaire, not from winning the lottery, but because of a bold bet you made years ago that everyone said was crazy? This is the story of my first 24 hours after the Iraqi dinar revalued, and how one decision changed everything. From securing millions to planning a legacy, this isn't about fantasy, it's about faith, strategy, and how a quiet dream exploded into a new reality. The day had finally come. After years of speculation, research, conversations, frustration, and unwavering belief, the Iraqi dinar had revalued. What was once seen as a fringe hope whispered in private groups and forums had transformed overnight into reality. And I was holding millions in revalued Iraqi dinar. Suddenly, I wasn't just someone who invested early, I was a dinar millionaire. With 24 hours ahead of me, everything was different. From the moment I opened my eyes, the energy in the air was electric. The first thing I did was check my phone. Notifications were flooding in, financial channels were buzzing, currency platforms had updated the rate, the dinar had revalued dramatically, well beyond the conservative projections. Years of preparation had finally collided with a moment of truth. My first thought, this isn't a drill. This is real, and I have 24 hours to breathe it all in. The first few minutes were strangely quiet. Not in the world, but in my mind. I expected excitement to consume me, but there was a profound stillness. For years, I visualized this day, fantasized about it, debated it, held onto it like a secret. Now that it had arrived, the moment was humbling. This wasn't just about money. It was about validation. It was about the struggle. It was about becoming someone who dared to believe. I walked to the kitchen and brewed a fresh cup of coffee, grounding myself in a simple ritual. I needed clarity. This wasn't a day to rush. It was a day to think, to act with intent. My first action: secure my financial foundation. I logged into my private banking portal, the one I'd prepared just in case this ever happened. Sure enough, the balance confirmed the numbers. The IQD had converted, and the value was staggering. A call came in, my private banker. We had discussed this scenario more than once. Today, it was real. She congratulated me and reassured me that all security protocols had been initiated. My funds were being moved to a segregated high-security account while we finalized the larger asset protection structure. That was part of my post-RV plan. Don't touch the money until it's protected. Next came the call to my attorney. Not just any attorney, but the one who specialized in wealth protection, tax structuring, and trust law. I had interviewed several over the past few years. Only the most discreet, intelligent, and forward-thinking made the cut. We confirmed the next steps: irrevocable trust activation, emergency privacy filings, and offshore asset protection planning. In under 2 hours, the legal framework was in motion. By 9 a.m., I was in the car. I didn't want to celebrate in public yet. I didn't need attention, but I did want solitude in a setting that reminded me how far I'd come. I drove to the hills overlooking the city, the same hills where I used to go just to clear my mind when things felt impossible. Now, from that same vantage point, I could look down at the skyline and know I had quietly become one of the wealthiest people in the region. I reflected on the journey. The doubts from family, the dismissals from friends, the people who laughed at the idea of holding Iraqi dinar. The countless nights spent researching, not just currency, but geopolitics, economics, historical revaluations, and monetary policy. It wasn't luck, it was conviction. That realization filled me with a deep sense of pride. But there was work to do. I returned home, and the next phase of the plan began: organizing my wealth team. My CPA joined the call. We reviewed the tax exposure. Luckily, most of it had been accounted for. We discussed capital gains mitigation strategies and charitable giving structures that would both benefit society and optimize my tax position. A donor-advised fund was set up by lunch. By 12:30 p.m., I was having a quiet meal in the garden, prepared by my private chef. Yes, I'd made the call earlier that morning. My first indulgence. Someone to create nourishing, delicious food so I could think clearly and feel grounded. The meal wasn't flashy. It was intentional. Organic grilled salmon, lemon-dressed arugula, fresh pressed juice. Everything about the day was about alignment, not excess. In the early afternoon, I took a call with my real estate consultant. I'd dreamed of this moment. Not to buy one extravagant mansion, but to acquire a portfolio that reflected my values. A wellness retreat in Costa Rica. A penthouse in Dubai. A vineyard in Tuscany. And a quiet, secure home in the US that offered peace and protection. The team was already compiling available off-market options. The searches began immediately. Next came the call with my philanthropic advisor. This was important. If this revaluation meant anything, it had to go beyond personal wealth. I wanted to fund schools in war-torn regions. I wanted to invest in clean water infrastructure across Africa and the Middle East. I wanted to launch a financial literacy foundation, starting in underserved communities, helping people understand money the way I wish I had in my early 20s. By mid-afternoon, things were starting to settle. That's when I allowed myself to invite a few people over. Not a party, but a gathering. My inner circle, the people who didn't laugh when I mentioned the dinar. A handful of trusted allies, family, a mentor, and one childhood friend who always said, if anyone's crazy enough to make it work, it's you. We sat outside. I didn't boast. I didn't throw money around. I simply told them it happened. And I let them feel the moment. There were tears. Not from me, but from one of them, a quiet acknowledgement of everything I'd been through to get here. We raised a glass of champagne, not to wealth, but to faith. To staying the course. To believing in the unseen. As the sun began to set, the tone of the day shifted. I sat with my journal. This was something I always said I'd do, document day one. Not for the public, for myself, so that 10 years from now, I could read the words of someone who stood at the edge of a brand new life. I wrote down everything, how the air smelled, how the light looked, how surreal it felt to go from, maybe someday, to, this is happening right now. At 7 p.m., my security team arrived. A new part of life. Not paranoia, just protection. When your financial status shifts this dramatically, so must your surroundings. I was briefed on new protocols. Travel arrangements, communication encryption, asset protection storage. The logistics were intense, but they brought peace of mind. By 8 p.m., I was in the backseat of a secured SUV, headed to a private dinner at a location that had been booked hours before. Not a restaurant, but a villa just outside the city. It was already prepared, soft lighting, beautiful music, and a calm ambiance. My team joined me, my lawyer, my wealth manager, and a few confidants. We talked about the future. Not just mine, but what this revaluation could mean for others. We discussed how to move quietly, but powerfully. How to leverage this wealth for long-term global impact. The dinner ended with a small gift from my team, a custom engraved gold coin. That simply read, faith plus action equals legacy. It was the perfect reminder. The night ended on a rooftop balcony. I looked out over the lights of the city and finally let the emotion catch up to me. I'd made it, not because I got rich overnight, but because I held on when it didn't make sense. I kept learning, kept planning, kept hoping. And now, standing under the stars, I was no longer waiting for my life to begin. It had begun, but this wasn't just my story. This was the beginning of something much bigger. A ripple effect. And while the world would keep spinning as if nothing had changed, I knew that in quiet corners of the world, others like me were waking up to a different life, one built not on luck, but on quiet conviction. So how did I spend my first 24 hours as a dinar millionaire? I didn't buy a sports car. I didn't throw stacks of money in the air. I didn't broadcast it on social media. I built the foundation. I set the tone. I created the path for not just a day of wealth, but a life of purpose. And in that, I found something even greater than money. I found freedom. Like and subscribe for more videos.